Money isn't just a tool. It's a mirror. It reflects the way you think, what you're afraid of, how you move, and most dangerously, who owns you. Everyone wants it. Most people chase it, but very few actually understand it. We give it fancy names: currency, success, freedom. But Machiavelli didn't see it that way. To him, money wasn't a finish line. It was visible influence, pure leverage. And he warned, if you don't understand how wealth is used to control, distract, and expose people, you'll be owned by it, even while thinking you're free. Here's the truth. Most people aren't really chasing money. They're chasing the illusion that money will make them powerful. But Machiavelli saw through that. He didn't crave riches for comfort. He cared about how money could bend people without raising a single voice. So let's break down the first rule Machiavelli would teach you. Not how to make money, but how money moves people. Rule 1. Money isn't power, it exposes it. You've seen this before. A man gets a promotion, a woman lands an inheritance, a company secures funding, and suddenly they start acting different, louder, flashier, more arrogant. They believe money elevated them. But look closer. The truly powerful don't change. Only the fragile ones do. Because money doesn't build character, it reveals it. The coward will hide behind flashy titles. The manipulator becomes generous when it's convenient. And the fool? He spends money trying to look intelligent. So the first Machiavellian truth is this: don't chase money to feel strong. Chase discipline, strategy, reputation, and let money be the byproduct of those things, not the foundation. Otherwise, you might end up rich, but still insecure. And there's nothing sadder than a wealthy man who walks into a room and commands nothing. Machiavelli watched kings fall, not because they lost their gold, but because they believed gold made them untouchable. Real power? That's when people adjust themselves before you even speak. Not because of your bank account, but because of your presence. Rule 2. Wealth without mystery is weakness. We live in a time where everyone is flaunting something. Watches, cars, bank statements. Some even show off their net worth like it's a badge of character. Machiavelli would have laughed at this. Because when you show people what you have, they start planning how to take it. He believed in a strategy most people overlook: concealment. True power is in what people can't see. When your wealth speaks louder than your strategy, you've already lost. You've drawn a target on your back. So what's the play? The Machiavellian builds in silence. He scales in shadows. He lets the world assume he's slightly less than he really is. Why? Because no one attacks what they underestimate. There's nothing more dangerous than a person whose power you can't calculate. Let people guess. Let them doubt. Let them think you're surviving while you're actually in control. That's how you move under the radar. That's how you strike without warning. That's how real empires are built, in silence. Rule 3. Never depend on money. You don't control. This is where most people get trapped. They think if they're earning, they're winning. But earning isn't owning. If your money can be frozen, taxed away, seized, restructured, or paused by someone else, you don't own wealth. You're renting it. And Machiavelli feared one thing more than poverty: dependence. If your lifestyle, your security, your peace relies on someone else's approval, you're not free. You're decorated, comfortable, but still a prisoner. And the one who feeds you owns you. So ask yourself, could one phone call destroy your income? Is your survival based on trends, applause, or someone else's platform? If the answer is yes, You're not building wealth. You're living in a gilded cage. Machiavelli's solution? Build financial fortresses. Revenue that survives silence. Streams that no one sees. Income that doesn't collapse just because people stop clapping. Because once you make others financially dependent on you, you don't need to control them with threats. You just exist. And they'll censor themselves. They'll apologize before you even raise an eyebrow. They'll obey and call it compromise. That's not power built on fear or fame. That's gravity, economic gravity. And when people orbit you, not because you beg, but because your financial structure pulls them in, that's real wealth. Not dollars, not digits, influence. And if you don't build that, you'll spend your life making money for someone else, believing you're safe while someone else holds the key to your future. So don't just chase income. Build independence. Not the kind you post online. The kind nobody sees. The kind nobody can take. Because when you've mastered that, you don't have to look powerful. You'll feel it. Every time you walk away from a deal without fear. Every time you say no without flinching. Every time people realize you're the only one in the room who doesn't need anything from anyone. That's how money really works. Not through display, not through obsession, but through quiet, relentless structure. Rule 4. Money tests. Loyalty better than anything. People say a lot of nice things. They love you. They believe in you. They'd never betray you. And then you introduce money. And suddenly, the truth shows up. Because money forces choices. It creates temptations, trade-offs, pressure. Give someone control over your income and watch how quickly loyalty turns into leverage. Offer a bribe and see how fast their values bend. Or worse, watch what happens when you get money and they don't. Your success becomes suspicious. Your progress offends them. They start treating your elevation like it's proof they've been left behind. Machiavelli never trusted people who only clapped when he was struggling. He watched how they behaved when wealth walked into the room. Did they cheer or did they compare? Because money doesn't change people. It reveals what they were pretending not to be. So what did Machiavelli do? He tested people, quietly, subtly. He might offer a role, a resource, a moment of advantage, not to help, but to observe. How do they handle access? Do they become arrogant, clingy, entitled? If so, he'd vanish, distance himself, withdraw. This is the art of strategic generosity, not given out of kindness, but using money as a filter, because not everyone deserves to be near your fire. Some people only show loyalty when they're cold. Once they're warm, they forget who lit the flame. So you don't have to hide your money. Just watch what happens when people think you have it. Their reaction is the blueprint. It tells you everything. Rule 5. The weak worship money. The strong control access to it. There are really only 2 types of people when it comes to money. The ones who chase it, and the ones who realize everyone else is chasing it and use that hunger to steer behavior. See, the weak are obsessed with getting rich, but the strong, they think bigger. They think about building systems, creating ecosystems where others rely on them just to survive. Machiavelli never idolized money for what it could buy. He studied it for what it could bend. And here's what he found. The person who distributes the money controls the direction of everyone who wants it. That's why kings had courts. That's why lords had loyal vassals. That's why today's billionaires rarely argue. They just allocate. They control the flow, and people fall in line. So if you want real power, Stop chasing paychecks like a hungry dog. Start asking bigger questions. How can I become a source? What skill can I build that makes others need me? How do I shift from being a consumer to the architect? Because once you control access, the game flips. You're no longer at the mercy of opportunity. You are the opportunity. The person who signs the checks doesn't have to beg. The one who owns the table doesn't have to ask for a seat. And the more people rely on you financially, the less you need to lift a finger to influence their behavior. They'll align themselves. They'll shift their tone. They'll play your game. That's the real move. Not flexing your income, but designing leverage. Building systems so valuable that other people orbit around you. And the less they can reach you, the more magnetic you become. Machiavelli didn't believe in applause-driven generosity. He believed in calculated patronage. Give, yes, but not for claps. Give to observe, to see who becomes entitled, who becomes loyal, who thinks your favor is a forever thing. Because those patterns, they're gold. They tell you who your real allies are and who's just rehearsing loyalty for the next handout. Rule 6. Let them think. Money is the prize. This one's subtle and ruthless. Machiavelli didn't need to dominate you to win. He'd just let you chase the wrong target. Let others fight over the salary, the status, the spotlight. Let them believe the raise is the win. The title is the trophy. The check is the crown. Meanwhile, he's sitting back, mapping out the whole field. You see, while they're distracted by the prize, he's building the system that created the prize in the first place. While they fight for a piece, he positions himself to own the entire pie. That's the power of patience, of strategy. Machiavelli knew. Money runs out, titles get taken, applause fades, but dependency, that lasts. Emotional, financial, psychological dependency, that's long-term power. And the most brilliant part? People will keep serving you after the contract ends. Not because they're forced to, but because they're tethered to what you gave them. Comfort, identity, access. So while they flex their wins, you stay focused on positioning. Let them fight over crumbs. You design the kitchen. Let them celebrate promotions. You own the ladder. Let them chase money. You make them chase you. Because that's how empires are built. Not by chasing gold, but by making others believe you're the source of it. Rule 7. Use money to create comfort. Then control the fear of losing it. Here's something Machiavelli understood better than most. People don't work hard for money. They work hard to avoid losing the life that money gives them. Once someone gets a taste of status, ease, visibility, it becomes part of their identity. Take that away, even slightly, and suddenly they're in panic mode. They'll do anything to keep it. And this is the move. You give just enough comfort, enough to stabilize them, to elevate them, to make them feel secure. Then you do something subtle. You pull back slightly. You delay a payment. Withdraw your attention. You shift your tone. Just enough to make them wonder, did I mess up? Not panic, just uncertainty. Because that tiny fear, that soft sense of discomfort, it makes people self-correct. They become agreeable, cautious, obedient, without even realizing it. Machiavelli didn't need to yell. He didn't threaten. He positioned. He understood that people will break themselves to avoid going backwards. Not out of greed, but out of fear. The fear of losing what they once thought they earned. So you don't need to weaponize money directly. You just give someone an identity, then show them how fragile it is, how easily it could vanish. That's not manipulation. That's architecture. It's how ancient empires maintained loyalty, not through force, but through privilege, through ceremonies, through symbols that whispered, "You belong until you don't." That whisper alone, that's enough to shape decisions more powerfully than any command ever could. Rule 8. The rich aren't respected, they're measured. Here's the uncomfortable truth about flaunting wealth. When you walk into a room and show it off, people aren't impressed. They're calculating. They're measuring you. They're thinking, how much of that is real? What did you overpay for? How hard would it be to replace you? Machiavelli knew that wealth doesn't attract admiration from the powerful. It only impresses those who want what you have. The strong don't envy you. They study you. They look for cracks, for excess, for weakness disguised as success. So if your goal is to look rich instead of move smart, you're inviting predators. People who'll smile at your lifestyle while quietly preparing to dismantle it. That's why Machiavelli would say, never let the world see how badly you need their validation. Because the second they see you need to be admired, they know how to control you. So what's the move? You don't display wealth. You embody precision. You don't flaunt purchases. You demonstrate restraint. You don't show off your assets. You let your silence speak for itself. Because when no one can measure the size of your empire, no one can plan how to breach it. And that's what makes the quiet rich man so dangerous. He doesn't crave attention. He doesn't care who knows. And that freedom, that's what gives him the edge. Rule 9. Become unshakable without it. This is the turning point. Most people fear losing money because deep down, they fuse their identity to it. Take away their income, and they feel like nobodies. But not the Machiavellian. He's built something rarer, non-attachment. He earns money. He multiplies money. He uses money. But he never becomes money. And that is the most terrifying kind of power. Because when you walk into a room and you're the only one who doesn't need anything, everything changes. You're not chasing deals. You're not clinging to approval. You're not desperate to belong. You can walk away, while everyone else is still begging to stay. That one fact, that quiet truth, it flips the entire dynamic. People chase you, not because you're rich, but because you're free. Even if the money vanished tomorrow, you'd rebuild it. Not from luck, not from noise, but from the same core traits that built it the first time: self-control, patience, awareness, leverage. Machiavelli didn't worship wealth. He wielded it like a scalpel, quiet, surgical, focused, unbothered, unreachable, untouchable. And that's the shift. When money stops being your master and becomes your mirror. Rule 10. He who controls the flow controls the frame. Machiavelli never put his trust in appearances. He understood something most people miss. Power doesn't belong to the one who holds the treasure. It belongs to the one who decides where it goes. And in today's world, that truth still stands. You can have money and be powerless. You can be wealthy and still replaceable. But if you control the distribution of value, attention bends toward you. Behavior aligns around you. Not because people admire you, but because they need you. That's what real positioning looks like. You don't want to be the richest person in the room. You want to be the one who signs the checks, the one who sets the budgets, the one who decides where the spotlight lands. Machiavelli understood this law of influence. People obey not because of love, but because of dependency. The powerful don't need to yell. They don't threaten. They just pause. And the room changes. Their silence becomes pressure. Their absence becomes punishment. Their nod becomes approval. That's why ancient kings didn't just collect gold. They built dependencies. They didn't need an army of worshippers. They needed people who couldn't afford to offend them. So don't just aim to earn more. Aim to become the source. And once you're seen as the source of wealth, you don't even have to remind people of it. The uncertainty is enough. When people don't know how they'll survive without you, they'll do everything they can to stay close. Rule 11. Never teach them the system. Let them rely on the outcome. Today, everyone wants to be a guru. Flashy online courses, get-rich-quick strategies, step-by-step tutorials. But the Machiavellian doesn't reveal the blueprint. He gives results, not instructions. He lets people benefit, but never fully understand. Why? Because the moment they understand your system, they can replicate it. And once they can replicate it, they don't need you anymore. So what do you do instead? You drip value. You offer just enough insight to keep them hooked, but never enough to make them independent. You make your process look like magic. You give them wins, yes, but not a map. That's how old wealth was preserved. Royal families didn't just pass down riches. They passed down secrecy. Knowledge locked within bloodlines, guarded, protected. And the result? Their mystique became their capital. People didn't just follow them for wealth. They followed them for meaning. Because once people believe in your results more than they believe in their own instincts, you control their financial narrative. At that point, you're no longer just a source of income. You become a source of identity. And when that happens, they'll never compete. They'll only try to stay close, to stay connected, to keep benefiting from what they can't explain. That's how you become untouchable. Not just rich, but mythic. Rule 12. When you give, attach invisible strings. Most people think generosity is about kindness. Machiavelli didn't. To him, giving was strategy. Not to be liked, but to create obligation. Here's the truth about human nature. People forget favors quickly, but they carry guilt for a lifetime, especially when the help feels rare, targeted, unprompted. When you show up for someone in a moment of crisis, and you don't ask for anything in return, it marks them, not publicly, but internally. They'll never say it out loud, but they'll feel it. A quiet debt, a subtle loyalty. And that is one of the most powerful currencies you can ever hold. But here's the key. Never announce it. Don't expect gratitude. Don't repeat the favor unless the power dynamic stays intact. The more exceptional and unrecurring your help feels, the more sacred it becomes. And people protect what feels scarce. You don't want to be known as the generous one. You want to be remembered as the irreplaceable presence in their moment of need. Because that's where real bonds are formed. Not with contracts, not with expectations, but with strategic charity that reshapes how someone sees themselves in relation to you. That's how you create quiet dominance. You build an emotional economy where people move differently, not because you said something, but because they remember what you did. And once their decisions start factoring in what they owe you, you don't need to lead. They'll follow. Rule 13. Build a life where money is present, but never loud. This is the endgame. The line that separates the rich from the truly powerful. The rich talk about money. The powerful don't need to. They walk into rooms where money is everywhere, but it's not the topic. It's just the atmosphere. Silent, expected, understood. They don't brag. They don't overshare. They don't try to impress, because they've already arrived. They surround themselves with people who understand value instinctively, not emotionally. People who don't flinch at the price tag. People who know when to talk and when to move. Because at a certain level, money becomes less of a conversation and more of an assumption. Machiavelli knew, you don't need to show off to prove control. You prove it in how you carry yourself, in the silence you keep, in the restraint you show, in the absence of fear when others panic. You want to be the one who sits quietly in the room, signs the check, and leaves, while everyone else is still trying to prove they belong. You want to walk through life unshaken, not because you have everything, but because you own more than you show. You control more than you explain. You influence more than you'll ever need to prove. That's how money works when it's mastered. Not loud, not frantic, not insecure, just present, like a shadow behind every move. Invisible, but unmistakable. Because real power isn't in your possessions. It's in your architecture, your discipline, your silence. And that silence, that's the sound of someone who never has to chase money again.